A blank page represents a source of analysis paralysis for most creators, but for George it represents over 100 million views in scripts he's written for giants like Ali Abdaal and Mike Shake. That's until he decided to step in front of the camera. With those credentials, he could have taken the easy route and launched another BS YouTube advice channel, selling the same hacks we've all heard 1,000 times. But you and I both know that the reality is much messier than that.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm making it all up.
In this chat, he tells me why 1,000 views are actually enough, how the simplicity North Star smooths out the creator roller coaster, and his specific strategy to launch and grow a niche-specific YouTube channel without losing track of what's important. Let's look at the reality behind the content to find out how he actually made it work. So you are known as kind of the YouTube scriptwriter. Can you tell me a few people that you work with that you kind of help them create videos with?
Sure. So, I mean, these days it's much more focused on my community who are, probably people that won't be as well known. We've had some very interesting faces come through in the last couple of years, but broadly they're lesser known channels, somewhere between. We have as small as like complete beginners, but usually between 5,000 and 50,000 kind of subscribers. But in the past, like the names that are in my Twitter bio, it's the Ali Abdaals. It was a bit of time with Ed Lawrence. It was a few months working with a guy called Mike Shake. With my agency, I worked with Kit, the email marketing platform. It's a real variety, a mixture of like talking head A-roll educators, crazy going out blowing things up entertainers, and then businesses who are just trying to do the YouTube thing.
Right. If we strip away the label of writer, what is one thing that you want people to know? Like, who is George?
Interesting. Well, I mean, the thing I always refer back to, and I think the only thing I leaned into when I was applying to work with Ali was that I was in a comedy, or I am in a comedy double act, and we spent a lot of time writing. We met at university, we did shows together, and so I think that's kind of been this thing in the background that I think has had an impact on what I do now as a YouTube writer person. So I would say, like, I don't know, that's what I would want people to know. That's like the weird other part of my life.
Well, maybe we'll get into that. But
okay.
First of all, I'm really excited to sit down with you right now and have this chat, because you moved from behind the camera to in front of the camera and are quite transparent with that transition. So I want to zoom out and not focus too much on the script writing process. There's a lot of good information out there, but instead focus on these transitions. What have you learned as a, working behind, in front of the camera, and what's kind of the plan behind all of that? To start this off, maybe, why did you decide to step in front of the camera? Yeah,
so I think, actually this immediately ties back to the whole comedy thing. I think I've always, growing up, I wanted to be like a comedian or a sort of sketch comedian writer type person, but I always loved being on stage. I do get quite nervous and kind of shy in person, but I love doing stage stuff. And so I think it was always inevitable that I was going to end up doing more stuff like this. And I think that probably meant that when I was first, writing freelance for a bunch of people, that I was going to want to build a personal brand on the side. Like, I wanted to be known for this thing. And I felt comfortable doing that, I think, because of the experience I had being on stage and being sort of vulnerable in that way, and like trying to be funny in front of people, which if that doesn't work, it's like everyone in the room knows it and there's no getting around it. So I think it was a mixture of that desire to like be a personality, and also I think I just saw the opportunity that that writing freelance scripts for people has a very not like a low ceiling, but there is a ceiling to how much you can physically do in a week, how many scripts you can write in a week. And the personal brand in front of camera, putting my opinions out there side of things, I think I saw that as a way to expand what was possible and turn this into more of a business versus, like a freelancer just like trying to get as many scripts written as humanly possible.
A lot of people, when they start a YouTube channel, they kind of just make a video and, quote unquote, throw spaghetti at the wall. But you approach the YouTube channel with quite a clear strategy. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I had the advantage of working with a lot of different people, and I still feel like I am a student of the packaging and like broader YouTube strategy stuff, because that's not what I've focused on. My focus is very much like inside the script, inside the video. How do we tighten up retention? How do we appeal more to our target audience? How do we convince more people to click the stuff that we've got in the description and whatever else? But because of having worked with all these different people, there were like different strategies that I picked up. So when I was working with Ed Lawrence for a few months, this was right at the start of, if anyone doesn't know him, he's a very, very well known YouTube strategist, but like with a real focus on business. And it's like, it's not about views, it's about getting the right people and converting them. And it was a great experience working with him. And when he launched his new channel, which is now his main channel, I remember he launched with 3 videos at the same time. Because his theory was that like if someone enjoys one video, if they find his channel for the first time, they're going to want to see like what else does this guy have, and if you've got only one video, you limit that opportunity for people to see what else you've got. So that was always at the back of my mind. And then Nate Black, he had a thing called the content wall strategy, which I believe is basically like a way to reset what the algorithm thinks of your channel. So if you are looking to change direction, you basically pause for a few months and then upload 3 videos at the same time in much the same way. And the idea being that those videos then start suggesting each other, and it gives a clearer kick up the bum to the algorithm to be like, oh, this is what this channel is about now. Therefore, we should serve it to these people. And so with that in mind, when I was starting my channel, I wanted to take something of both of those. And I basically created this sort of whirlpool strategy, as I call it, where I started with 3 videos all uploaded at the same time, but the end screen call to action on each of those videos links to one of the other 3. And so in theory, if you watch all 3 videos in a row, it then loops you back to the first one again. And the theory being that whichever video people found me on, they would always get a chance to watch all 3 videos. Even if they found me on video 3, they then get sent to video 1, and then they'd see video 2. They start on video 2, they get linked to video 3, then back to video 1. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do. And the idea being that from then on, every video that I've uploaded links basically down the chain. So video 4 links back to video 3, video 5 links back to video 4. The theory again being that no matter what point in this process people discover one of my videos, they'll get sent back and back and back and back to theoretically watch everything. And that was great for the launch. There's maybe we can get into it. I think as time is going on, I think it might be time for me to break the chain that I've now built up and up and up slightly. I love having it as the bedrock of the channel, and it was good for the launch, but I think I'm seeing some little things now that I'm like, maybe I need to modify the strategy a little bit.
What are those little things?
So I think the key with an end screen call to action, I know we don't want to get too much into the sort of YouTube script writing-y stuff, but is that the video you choose to link back to has to have a really, really obvious and easy fit. It has to match the kind of mindset that the viewer is in when they're watching the video currently. The video you're linking to needs to solve a similar problem or the next logical problem in whatever journey they're going on. And I think I've been prioritizing linking to whatever the most recent video was over picking the right video to link back to. And so while the first 5 or 6 videos all had like crazy end screen click-through rates, I am now seeing them kind of tailoring back into like under average. And so I'm like, I think the issue is that the videos aren't always the best match for each other. Right. And there's a chance also that if somebody has watched the last like 5 of your videos and then they're watching another one now, it's like they don't want to just get linked back to the video they watched the week before. There's probably value in sending them to something from a few months before that they may not have seen. So I like it as a launch strategy, but I think it needs to the chain needs to be cut at some point.
Very interesting. I'm going to test a variation of the strategy myself, actually, because I've always worked in seasons and I'm kind of embarking on a new season with a new direction. And so I was just like, let's put this to the test, see if this works or how this works. I'm just going to add another little step to it where every video filters down to like the core audience. So like start with the broadest interest and like narrow it down. Obviously, that's I can't control, but that's the, my experience that I'm running with this, and you really inspired that.
Well, thank you. No, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think you're right with the way that I've been doing it. It's like we could go from really niche problem to really broad problem to blah 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 blah. Whereas like literally funneling down from like problem unaware to problem aware to whatever the rest of that looks like. It sounds really cool.
And so it's been a couple months now since you properly started the YouTube channel and have been quite consistent with the uploads. How does it feel? How has it been different? Like, what was the unknown unknowns, as people say?
Yeah, I think the consistency has been the easier thing. Took some time off over the holidays, but because I have this system that I use to write, and I have these accountability sessions with my own community, which actually function for me as well as accountability, it means that I'm writing every week, and it means that the only limit is how quickly my editor can edit and things like that. And so that side of things has been fine. I think the issue now is that, and I always knew this was going to be my goal. The priority one was consistency. Priority two is then looking back and seeing, okay, what's actually working here, what's not. And I think the mental battle, like even though I knew that the priority was consistency, there's still a bit of your brain, I think, anytime you start a YouTube channel that's like, yeah, but like by video 5 or 6, I will probably have gone viral 2 or 3 times. And it's like, oh no, the videos are all like, a few thousand views, which is what I was expecting at the start. It's a niche topic, and that's all I need. It's very much the Ed Lawrence approach of getting the right people in, and I'm very focused on who I'm trying to get to watch the videos. But I think now is the time that I'm like, no, I do actually need to start thinking from the sort of packaging first mindset, which is not what I've been doing so far. So it, like everything, it's like trying not to get obsessed with the numbers. And that's been the hardest thing, even with all my experience. And like you go into it thinking, no, it's not about the numbers. Kind of becomes about the numbers pretty quickly. And so I need to get more strategic, I think, from now on.
Yeah, that's something I was really curious about, because you have this reference point of the big creators, Ed Lawrence, Ali Abdaal, of just like, you upload a video and it's got 500,000 views, right? And the channel is doing, like, from my perspective, it's doing really well. Having about 3,000 subscribers, every video gets a couple thousand views. It's quite consistent, which is not normal these days for a lot of channels. And, I did some research recently that 90% of videos that are uploaded to YouTube don't even get 1,000 views.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that measurement, you're doing pretty all right. But
appreciate it.
How?
You too.
Thanks. It is hard to not look at the numbers, especially how the YouTube backend is designed. You're just like, but I want more. How has it been like for you with this background?
It's been helpful because I've got a clearer sense of what to ignore. I have been able to push through those feelings that we were just talking about with the knowledge that I have this North Star and I have this very specific audience member in mind. And, I can see the impact on my newsletter growth, for example, even with the small channel. And so there are enough signals, even exterior to YouTube, that show me, okay, this is like a good move and it's going in the right direction. But I think now it's like you say, especially when you still have access to all these YouTube studios where you can be like, I wonder how this channel's doing these days. You're like, oh, another one of 10 with 500,000 views. It's it's a bit of a strange one, but no, it's fine. I think I've been aware of what my process is going to be, and from March we've got it all sort of planned out. Upload consistency will double, and the strategic side of things will come into play. Whereas before it was like, can we get the consistency down? So yeah, there's a plan which helps with the mental side.
Okay, so you mentioned there's a plan, there's a North Star. Tell me about that. What direction are you taking this ship?
I felt for the last 3 years, so I worked full time with Ali for nearly a year, was a freelancer for maybe another year after that, and then it kind of became this business that it has been for the last 2 years. In all of that time, it's always felt like guesswork. It's always felt like just snatching at whatever signals come up, trying to do lots and lots of stuff. That was partly why I did the agency. It was like, oh, there's another thing, and people say you can make loads of money from an agency and you don't even have to write anything. Great. It was the worst decision of my whole business life. And so it always felt quite overwhelming. Whereas the goal this year is just simplicity, is stripping everything back and focusing on the thing that I know I can do really well. And for me, that is focusing on my community. And so even when it comes to the financial side of things, for the first time this year, I have a very specific plan. I have specific numbers that I'm trying to hit. And I know that if I sell this many community places, this many courses, then the year is a success. And sort of up the chain from there is thinking, okay, therefore I need to be making approximately this many videos. They need to be getting roughly this many views, but my newsletter needs to be growing at this approximate rate in order to achieve that. So it feels like clarity. And so the North Star, if there is one, is just doing the one thing that I do well as I possibly can, which is running the community well and being of service to the YouTubers in there, while on the side doing a little bit of client work with a very small, literally like 2 people, sometimes 3, just to keep my mind thinking, like really in the trenches with other larger YouTube channels. But yeah, simplicity is the North Star, I guess.
I love that. Also something I discovered over the last couple of months, that simplicity.
Is it really?
Yeah, simplicity is such a big key. I think it's quite common in the creator space because there's all these things you could be doing, or maybe some people say should be doing, because the goal is growth, and like you want to reach more people. But then at the end of the day, it's just like, what do I want? What is the life I want to live? Right?
Yes,
and just
exactly that.
Make it simpler and simpler.
Exactly.
So you mentioned the community and the accountability sessions that you have there, that they're also accountability for yourself. What's going on there? What does the community look like?
At its core, people can just share whole scripts, but usually bits of script. So usually it'll be the hook, or it'll be the structure they're thinking of, or it might be the packaging and the hook to see, like, if you clicked on this, is this the hook that you'd expect, et cetera, et cetera. And they can get direct feedback from me and the other students on that. But then we have these live sessions. So one of them is in office hours. I turn up once a week for an hour, and we talk about whatever people want to talk about. But I think the real needle mover has been these accountability sessions. And it is really simple. Like, I think the idea of accountability is not rocket science, but I've tried to be accountable to myself and to other people in the past, where I'll block stuff in my calendar, but stuff happens and you're like, well, you know what, this is actually priority 1 today. I'll ignore this thing in my calendar. Or it'll be a friend who you're like, we should meet up once a month and make sure that we blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't happen. Whereas this sort of forcing function I have now, that I have to show up to this 2-hour writing session once a week because my students will be there, forces me to write. And to add to that, I think this is, I don't know how this will apply exactly to what your viewers are doing necessarily, but I also screen record me writing the script when I write it. At the end of this session, there's an expectation that I will post the recording of the script that I just wrote. And so that double layer of accountability means that I force myself to write something, and by the end of each of those sessions, I've got another script that's ready to go. That's what's been useful for me. But I think for the other students as well, it's either they're writing a script or they are reviewing modules of the course that they haven't taken in a while, or it might be that they're really focusing on their audience avatar and trying to nail that ideal person that we were speaking about.
Just to understand correctly, is that like just a co-working session where everybody's in a room but not talking, or is it like interactive?
No, so that is a quiet call. We check in after an hour to see how people are doing very briefly. And then at the end, we stick around for 10 minutes and just talk about, what people got done and if anything, any questions came up. But yeah, it's just a quiet co-working thing.
That is so fascinating. That you just come together, hang out on the internet without really interacting. But it, for you, it creates this level of consistency, right? It's just like, is that the forcing function of like, new video needs to happen?
Yeah, exactly that. And it's been really usul for that. And it is a bit odd because you can sense sometimes people want to ask more stuff. But then we have the separate session for that anyway, and we can talk about things there.
Now let me take a little step back, because you worked with and for Ali Abdaal, and from my perspective, he has this like aura of a YouTube incubator. He like inspired a whole wave of creators. He really enabled a lot of high quality channels through his courses. And he, created a system for people like you who like were working in the back end and are like becoming all these like notable people in the creator space, right? What's the insight here? What is like what's been going on behind the scenes there that is created this environment?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think it's true. Like a lot of, I think it's more rare to not have Ali's name in your Twitter bio in 2026 than to have it. I think Ali moves very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been probably one thing that I have taken away from this, is like the idea of not taking anything, not like taking it not seriously, but the idea that nothing is a disaster. So actually, after I'd left the team, I went back in to do some consulting. They'd hired me to do like an hour of consulting, and it was in that day, like I was in their office and I obviously knew everyone still. And it was before I'd made my course and everything. And Ali was just like, he just sort of wandered in, sort of as he does, just sort of appears for like 5 seconds. He's like, oh, hey, what's going on? And I was like, oh yeah, not much. And he said, hey, why haven't you made a course yet? And I was like, I don't know, I guess, does anyone want that? Like, is that what would they pay me for that? And he was like, George, just do the pre-sale. If people buy it, you make it. If they don't, then you refund the people who bought it and you move on. And I was like, that's a good point. So I just did that, and then people bought it, and then I had to make it. And then that is now like one of the sort of big like bedrock things of my business. So I think that mindset of like, why don't you just do this? And if it doesn't work, you can just like refund people and it's fine. I think that's been quite valuable. And I suspect that's something that a lot of us take away, that nothing is ever that dire. So yeah, I think that's probably a big thing of it, is that mindset.
Just do it, and you can always fix something if it goes wrong, or nothing is
exactly. Yeah, and even if you make a keyboard that everyone hates, you can at least make a video out of it and be like, yeah, sorry, no one liked it. But some AdSense from this video, who cares?
No, but that makes a lot of sense actually when I think about it, because I feel like YouTube was this place of just like, let's have fun and, do something, make something. And with, the phase we went through, the pandemic, and now big media coming in, it's turning into this like media business, and it gets this sense of everything is so serious and we have a strategic plan, and just like, yeah, that's all good and whatever, but like you can also just have fun and like move at your own pace.
I think you're right. It really is the antithesis of the like plan everything, business everything, big media empire everything. And that was nice, and it meant it was, and that's what I miss. That's the one thing I do miss about being, now that I'm sort of solo, is that in-person thing with a team every day, and a really interesting. I think the average age when I moved there of the company was like 27 or something, and I was 23 or 24. So it was a very young team, and that was quite fun.
So right now it's just you and an editor. Is that the George Blackman team, or is there something else?
It's me and my partner, who just before this call I was saying she's run off to take care of our cat who was making a nuisance of herself. So she's kind of my repurposer in chief. So she's got a lot of experience in social media, writing copy, and so she repurposes all my newsletters, does a lot of other stuff like that, basically. So she's the only like main person, but then I have a freelance editor that I work with, and that's pretty much it.
Very nice, very lean, and keep it all in house.
Yeah, exactly.
What is sort of the business, I guess, of George Blackman? How do you make money, right? That's always the question when you look at creators.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, what's coming in next? Something, I hope. Yes, I mean, it's shifted from a per script, you pay me X amount when I write a script, to a mixture of, say, like passive income from people buying my course, and I have a small batch of like AI prompts and things, which are sort of an upsell of that. So people will buy that, and then it's joining the community, which is a yearly subscription fee. There used to be a 6-month option, and sort of taking some inspiration from Jay Klaus, who I believe removed his 6-month option for the lab, his community. It's now a 12-month or nothing kind of thing. Those are the main ways. And then, like I said, 2 or 3 clients on the side who will just pay a kind of monthly retainer type thing. for me to help them with whatever it is that they're doing. But the majority, it's like, I would say, it's probably 40% course, 40% community, 20% consulting, and closer relationships with other YouTubers.
And then you also have some like kind of standalone products, and one of them you released last year, the custom GPTs, which is like basically George in a box. And
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as a writer who at least used to make most of his income from writing for people, to releasing something that can write for anybody at effectively no cost. What's the thinking behind there? Because, especially in the creator space, there's a big conversation going on of how useful it is, and like, do I make myself an AI version or not, despite it being available, right? Tell me more.
I think for a while I was resisting the AI thing, because I was probably a bit scared, and it seemed like it's just a lot. There's just so many options and more options every day. Like literally yesterday I heard about Claude Bot for the first time, which I don't even know what that is, but suddenly everyone's saying how useful it is. And I'm like, oh man, I got to learn another thing. Okay. But I was resisting it for a while, realized that was A, silly, and B, financially silly. So I was like, well, look, what if I did try and I've got all these systems and processes in my course that I use to guide me when I'm writing a script. What if we could just supercharge that with AI? What if we could, I think anytime you've got a framework or a system, that's sort of prime turf to be using AI to be like, please express this idea in this framework. And so that was the thinking, like, can I make a kind of like a speed run version of my course using just these AI prompts, which I did. And I felt like in that period, I was really on top of it. And I was AI prompting a lot and spending a lot of time arguing with the custom GPT builder thing. But now it's been 6 months or so since that came out. I feel like I'm off the pace a little bit again. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should be using Claude more than ChatGPT, but like, I don't really know what the use cases are. People say Claude is much better for creative stuff. And I feel like that's where the simplicity thing comes in. And I'm like, that's not the thing I really care about as much. I care about being there in person in my community and talking to people and whatever else. But certainly at the time, it was a move to make sure I was like keeping up with how the world was moving. But now I feel behind again.
Do you think all of this AI knowledge and tools being available is going to change how people write scripts? Or like, are you basically worried for your job, your knowledge, I guess is the baseline question, right? Because I can create 100 scripts in the next hour if I wanted to.
Yeah. If I were writing for people still, I would be worried. But this comes back to the whole community thing. I think that's why I think the narrative is that courses are dead, communities are the future, is because you can replicate me by just taking all of my stuff and like turning it into a bot. But I think that sense of human connection, the fact that this student of mine was like, man, I really love being on these 2-hour calls where we're just sat together working. Can we make that like a 24-hour possibility? I think that desire is always going to be there. And that's why the community side of things is more defensible, I think. I don't know. How do you feel about this stuff? Like, it must be, does it worry you?
My job, the way I see it, is to have conversations. So that is very safe for now, right?
Yes.
What kind of my broad takeaway is, AI is moving at a pace that humans cannot comprehend. So doing any kind of planning for it is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between generative AI and like utility AI, because utility AI is like, it speeds up my workflow so much. It just like cuts half the episode, right? But for me, I embrace it as a assistant, and try not to worry about the future, because where's that going to get me? Yeah.
No, I agree. I like that difference between generative and assistive. AI.
But on that note of like authenticity and the human element, right? The very first video on the channel that you uploaded last year is a not scripted, very emotional, very personal video of
Oh,
you
yes.
talking about why you started the agency and subsequently closed it. And it is the most viewed video on the channel.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know, a conflict for you? Is this like, maybe you should do more unscripted stuff? How, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I have had this thought a lot. And actually, my most recent video, it was a sort of end of year video where I was talking about like my whole journey in this space and how my script writing has changed over that time. And that was very similarly, it had some guardrails. I knew what all the payoffs were going to be throughout the video, but it was also very unscripted. And then it also became, except for that very first video, my next fastest growing video. And so yes, I do. I think I'm constantly trying to find that balance in the middle. But I think ultimately those sorts of videos are good for deepening relationships, but I don't think they're necessarily the best for growing the audience and sort of reaching new people. And I think if you want to get people on side initially, they are more interested in efficiency. They want to feel like their time is being well used. They want to feel like there's a high ROI on the time they're spending watching you. And so that's why I really like going all out with scripting when I can. It also makes filming significantly easier. Since I've got this teleprompter that I'm looking at you on now, it was like a breath of fresh air compared to when I filmed my course. It was like I had the script over here, and then it was like, okay, memorize the line. Okay, so in this chapter we're gonna, and then I'd screw it up, and I'd be like smashing my head on the desk, and then be like, okay, learn it again, and it just took so long. Whereas fully word for word script teleprompter makes filming a lot easier, and I think ultimately results in a better product. But I think you're right. There is absolutely a place for these much more personal, unscripted type of things, like life update type videos, which, you know, Ali does those. They always do very well. Yeah, there's lots of other people I can think of, but I think there's a place for them, but they wouldn't run the business if that was all I did.
That is a very interesting distinction, because for some channels, the life update or those unscripted videos is the channel, but those are the personality-driven channels, not necessarily built to, you know, bring people to a product. So
I think there's also like extra context as well. The time of uploading that stuff, like Twitter has changed so much. Twitter used to be the engine that grew everything. And this is part of why, you know, to your original question, why I moved in front of the camera here is because I want to use YouTube to regrow that source of leads. And at the time I released my very first video, I think there was an element that I was still like growing on Twitter. And there was this sort of, I don't know, I had this internal, at least, like underdog momentum where I was like, I'm trying all this stuff and I'm like growing on Twitter, and people are hoping, you know, hopefully they'll start to know me as this like scriptwriter guy. And I think that context all feeds in. Whereas I feel like I'm not like that old, but I already feel like you just seeing new waves of people coming in, and you're aware that like, oh, okay, I'm not the like new guy underdog anymore. It's like, oh, he's one of the many people that exists. So I think the context is a bit different now to when I uploaded that first video.
So if you think about this person who is a little bit stuck in the messy middle, maybe spends too much time in the YouTube dashboard, and they're trying to find their way forward, what would you tell them?
There are certain lessons that I've been able to take on now that I was just not in the place to take on a couple of years ago. So things like I knew that I should be really on top of my numbers, and I've known that for years. And yet I was trying to figure so much other stuff out. My energy was so split in all these different places that I could just never properly get on top of my numbers. This year, finally, like I said earlier, I've got this plan. It feels like it's all worked out. But I think the thing I would have changed would have been not beating myself up a couple of years ago for not doing everything perfectly. There's so many people on Twitter and well, everywhere really, that will say like, oh, this year I've done this year I've done that. Here's a new strategy I'm working on. And you're like, oh, I should be that productive. I should be that efficient. I should be that on top of this, that, and the other. And I think I've just learned that like certain things they won't click until they can. And I've started to feel that more this year. So that's the one thing, is like not beating yourself up. But then the second thing would just be just finding your very specific lane and bloody mindedly focus on gathering a group of people who really care about that one thing. And for me, that's script writing. And it's been, I know there's only so many niches that exist, but like, pick that really specific thing. Try not to get obsessed with the numbers and just focus on, can I gather those people around me? Whether that's just for fun, whether that's to grow my channel, whether that's to start a business and make money from it, whatever. Those will be the most fun people to hang out with anyway. That's what I would say.
We've went through a lot of things. Is there anything that you feel like you still want to say that you want to share with individual creators who are trying to find their way in this constantly changing landscape?
I was having this conversation with a student of mine the other day about mentors and kind of mentor figures. And I think this maybe goes a bit beyond the scope of our conversation, but I think one thing that I've learned since starting all of this, and I think before I was getting into the YouTube side of things, and before I had, gone to these conferences where you get to meet lots of interesting people and, meet a lot of the faces that you see on YouTube, is that the sorts of people that could and would be good mentors for you, and the sorts of people to aspire to work with, and like all of this stuff, are not necessarily the big names that everyone's heard of. That's not to say that they're bad people at all, but what I've discovered, especially in the last year, is that the people that I've worked with who are kind of quietly doing what they do extremely well behind the scenes are much more interesting, are much more generous, and are ultimately, I think, more valuable as mentors, people to aspire to meet and to learn from. I think I was definitely stuck in the trap of thinking, I need to meet this person because they're famous. I need to meet this person. Like, oh, maybe when I'm at Vid Summit this year, I can bump into this person, like blah, blah, blah. Whereas now I'm like, I think of, like my business coach is a guy called Craig Shoemaker. He's one of the most generous, wonderful people that I know. He's had an enormous impact on my business, but he's not like super well known. He's not got a massive personal brand on Twitter. He's not got a big YouTube channel, but he's like one of the best. And so I, if to summarize it, my advice would be to try to seek out people like that, and that'll have a bigger impact on what you're trying to do than like the names on the billboards and that you see all over YouTube.
Very good advice.
I hope so. Yeah. I might be wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm making it all up.
That is the one takeaway from meeting people who are thinking about starting a YouTube channel, becoming a creator, to people who have quote unquote made it. We're all trying to figure it out right now. Like nobody has a master plan.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think you see that at the highest level, and working with the most interesting people or like the most famous, they're also figuring it out.
Sweet. So just to wrap this up, George, what does success look like for you?
For me, it is an increasing sense of autonomy, time freedom, time with family, my partner, our cat, our noisy cat. And it's just not feeling rushed in the day to day. And the closer I can get to that, as far away as I can get from the agency end of the spectrum, then I think that's the more successful I'll be.
You made it to the end and probably love in-depth YouTube conversation as much as I do. But I know not everybody has friends for these types of chats. And that is exactly why I created the Creator Trust Club, a space where independent creators come together once a month to talk about the reality behind the content. If that sounds interesting to you, you find the link down in the description. And I hope to see you there.